So wonderful to end on a harmonious note. Good morning, PSB. How is everybody doing? Deb.
Good morning. I just wanted to say that is for all those babies and children that are being rescued.
Amen. Well, that's what it's all about, folks, is this relationship. It's all about our families. It's all about enjoying the freedom that we've been given by the Lord and being able to pass that on to our children and our grandchildren. And that's worth fighting for. You know, there are very few things in this world that are worth, laying down everything for. And I have to say that this week I've been reminded over and over again why we're here, why we're being given this opportunity by the Lord. If you look at it, we're being given an opportunity to declare who we are, to declare what we're willing to lay down everything to fight for. Are we willing to lay down our lives like He laid down His life for us? Are we willing to love each other in that manner that we're willing to give it all to see that our children will be free? And when you see a video like that, there's always a little bit of jerk in your heart and everything, but that's real. Those are the things that people put that uniform on for, are for their fathers, for their mothers, for the ability to go back to the family farm and enjoy that freedom. And it's being challenged, folks. It is being challenged. They have deceived us into believing that they can take our rights from us, and they've utilized a tactic that the Nazis developed in 1933, and that was to write up what they call emergency services acts in each state. And that Emergency Services Act, when the governor declares an emergency, it gives him or her extra constitutional powers above and beyond what they currently have. And so that's what caused the lockdown. Is they've outsmarted us. They used a tactic because we didn't study history. We didn't realize what they were doing with these Emergency Services Acts. Now, they did it on a national level as well, folks. They wrote the National Emergency Act, and the president declared a national emergency last year on February 15th. As you recall on my show, I had predicted he was going to declare it, and he declared it on the 15th. And there was some reasons to do it then. The reason being that the Chinese were in charge of the port in Southern California, Long Beach, and if you'll remember, there had been some helicopters going into LA during rush hour traffic, and I believe that was they pulled out from the Guatemalan Cultural Center. They pulled out a very dangerous bomb, a carfentanil bomb, and that would have destroyed the entire 20 million population in LA. And we never heard about it, but the reason being that emergency was declared was because that was done on February 6th, and the president declared an emergency on the 15th, and then removed China's control of Long Beach Port on March 6th, exactly 1 month. So they were given 30 days notice, basically, and removed their control of Long Beach Port, because what we found out, folks, is that there are tunnels everywhere. And the folks, the 160th Special Operations Air Regiment, they obviously went through the tunnels and came out of the Guatemalan Cultural Center. So where did they go into the tunnels? Well, we don't know, but we do know this, that the Patriots have control of them. And that's where the fight has been being fought, folks. And so we're not seeing it. We sit here in our impatience. We sit here not understanding that there is a battle going on. It's just like the spiritual battle that's being fought in the heavenlies, folks. We have no idea that the regiments and the legions of angels that are battling for us right now with the spiritual powers and principalities of this world and in the heavenlies. And so we need to understand that. We need to understand that there's a whole different, larger world. It's much greater than this world, is the spiritual battle that's going on around us, and we don't see it. And, when you when you look in the Bible, there is one area where one of the prophets says, I want my servant to be able to see the battle going on around us, and that was Elijah's student. Elisha, and when he said, "Hey, Lord, show him the battle that's going on around here," all of a sudden they saw legions of angels surrounding them on the fields, and they realized that they just weren't alone. They'd never been alone. And I think that that's the biggest difficulty for us here in this world, is that this enemy would have us believe that we're alone, that we're ill-equipped, that we're just humans flailing against, the turbid storm coming our way. And that's not the case. The Lord's fighting for us, and our job is to endure. Our job is to have good courage and trust and faith and hope upon his promises, and stand in that armor and say, look, there's nothing that's going to move me. My feet are planted on the Rock of Ages, and the Rock of Ages does not move. It's an immovable, immutable Spirit of God. And so I don't need to be concerned. I don't need to be worried. I don't need to be upset. And Jesus, he talked about that when we get into Matthew. And he's going through the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes. He's going through probably one of the greatest sermons ever presented, and he went through it in a way that he said, look, don't be angry, don't fall prey to these emotions, these worldly emotions, because you just don't have to be concerned about it. I need you to live a different way. Don't be adulterous. Don't favor divorce. Love your enemies. And that's the most difficult thing I've ever seen asked of anyone, is loving your enemies. I can see loving your friends. I can see loving people who maybe disagree with you. But when you get to loving your enemies, that's something that's, I would say, practically impossible for a human being to do. And I would say it is, because you have to be filled with the Lord's Holy Spirit to be able to do it, because he loves everyone. He wants all of them to be saved. He doesn't want Satan to lead any of them into the lake of fire. And then the Lord says some really cool things. He says, look, worry is useless. He gives us the Lord's Prayer, and then he says, encourage each other. Spend your time encouraging each other, because you don't need to worry. You need to put your cares and your worries in me. Jesus says very clearly, bring me those who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give them rest. This is about going to God and having a relationship with God, having a direct connection with Almighty God, and being able to take back that peace that surpasses worldly understanding. When we come back with that peace in our hearts, things don't matter that much here. Or what does matter becomes really relevant, and that is our children, our families, our country, our freedom, our honor. Those things that when you reflect upon, you really begin to understand what's valuable in this world. And it's not the treasures, it's not the gold, it's not the fame that they've had us chasing for years and years, and that's been what's gotten us off the main road. And Jesus said very clearly, enter ye at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there will be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there are that find it. And so he's saying, look, there's something beyond valuable here, and that is, it's a very skinny passage. It requires you to surrender your heart to the Lord. It requires you to find that narrow gate, to walk that skinny path, to do something that the world is not going to want you to do. The world is going to coax you to do the exact opposite. The world is going to say, take the easy gate to wealth and fame and power and lust and sin. And what the Lord is saying is, look, it's a very narrow gate I'm pointing you toward. Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. So, folks, you'll know people by the Holy Spirit's seal upon their life. And when you're sealed by the Holy Spirit, you begin to bear that spiritual fruit that resembles the Lord. It resembles his characteristics. It resembles the characteristics of fine fruit, goodness, kindness, peace, long-suffering, gentleness. You begin to start to look different to the people around you. Are people recognizing that about you? Are you recognizing that about others? Are you seeing that, since they've been with the Lord, they're changing? That there's a sudden... It's funny, I've never grown a beard before, and I decided to grow it, and this is a month. We got a month here. What do you think? It worked out, I think. Gave me something else to look at, but beside that shiny cranium. So, look, I'd love to come on here and be Mr. Serious. I'd love to come on here and just say, look, I'm going to give you the news. Let's just deliver the news. But we've got that. And it just freaks people out. A whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of data coming your way, and most of it is frankly not encouraging. Most of it is, I've realized something about the MK Ultra social engineering stuff, that they can't do it on a positive note. They can only do it on a negative topic. That the narrative has to be negative. It has to be something that will either make you depressed or something that will make you angry or something that will make you fearful. And that's where the social engineering works. It doesn't have the strength and power in positivity. So we're the ones that should remain in positivity, and that way we can know very clearly that we're escaping the narrative. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Hey, look, Caleb's making sense. Come on, look. It's a rare day. So, what are we about today? This is 2020. We're coming into the fall of a presidential election year, a year when we could clean out Congress, a year when we could take our nation back. And the price is very high. The price of losing is losing our country. The price of losing is losing our children, because when we look upon what they're doing to our children, they're leading them astray of all the good and righteous things that we believe in. They're leading them into a false world, into a deceptive world, into an angry world, into a cruel world. And we're seeing that cruelty exhibited through the hearts of our children, and that breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. There you go. So it's funny. I'd shaved my whole life, and I said, I would try to grow that thing, and see what it came out all red. I'm like, yeah, Irishman. There you go, Irish and Scottish. That's what you get. That's what you get. But gave me something else to do besides looking at this funny face. There you go. So, again, we're in a situation now where these folks, this past week, when I saw what they did to Bill Barr, when I saw what they did to him in front of the nation, when they refused to give him a moment to speak, though they had required him to come and testify and then didn't let him testify. To me, that's an indication that A, they don't want to hear what he has to say, and B, why don't they want to hear what he has to say? Because they're afraid. They truly are afraid, and they couldn't afford for him to say anything. Happy birthday, Bev. It's Bev's birthday, everybody. They couldn't afford for him to say in front of the public what he was going to say. They were admitting his power. They were admitting his potency. They were admitting their own fear. And I know that he wanted to come off all, we're powerful, we're in charge, we're important. I'm regaining my time, sir. This is my time. I'm in charge, sir. They weren't in charge. What they were is they were declaring their own fear. They were declaring their own powerlessness. And when you treat somebody with that level of disrespect, especially, somebody who's a secretary or somebody's, a high-level AG like that, you've lost your mind. Because that's what politics is all about. Politics is all about it's all about coming together and showing some amenability, some being amenable to listening to the other person's side. That's what politics is. And so what these guys are expressing, what they're practicing, is no longer politics. What they're practicing is tyrannicism. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it in their faces. They're saying, no, it's my way. And that's tyrannicism. That's not politics. That is not democracy. That's not republicanism. It has nothing to do with it. It has to do with it's going to be our way, and that's the way it is. And folks, that's communism. And that's where they want to lead us, and that's where they're taking our children. And you have to wonder what kind of agreements they've signed that they are so thoroughly assured that this is going to take them to the path to their own wealth and their own fame, because that's what has to have happened. They have to come to a cooperative agreement. And I believe I've found some of those points where they came to a cooperative agreement, and I'll discuss those with you today. When I look at today's show, there's no enormous revelations. There's no gotcha. There's no wow. And I realize that's the aha. That's the epiphany, is that we've come to a point where pretty much everything's on the table. We know that there are going to be individual acts of, pedophilia and corruption that crop up. But now we know what they did. We know the full extent of it. We can go, looking at the Q drop yesterday. If you follow that Q drop, you're like, wow, okay, I can see each event as it broke. I can see each area as we became aware of it. I can see those things that we used to guess at. We now know. We know that it's no longer a guess. We now know a day, January 4th, January 5th, when the former administration came together and tried their darndest to infiltrate, to spy on, and perhaps even worse, we're going to discover, to assassinate a standing president. And I think that's one of the things that's remaining to come out that's going to surprise folks. Because when you're involved in an attempted assassination of the president, there's no doubt of treason. It's no longer a question, a chemical question of legality. It's now, you've tried to kill the president, you're treasonous, So what we're going to be dealing with is a lot of people that all along have been playing goody two-shoes, or all along have been saying, look over there, or all along have been saying, like Dershowitz. Did you see Dershowitz last night? I wasn't there. The president wasn't there. These are not the droids you're looking for. I didn't go to his apartment, even though we have pictures and everybody says I went to his apartment 3 times a week. The facts are the facts, and these people are now trying to have us believe that the facts are not the facts. That's just ridiculous. That's taking drugs. So they need to stop taking their own drugs. And they need to realize what's coming, and what's coming is culpability. What's coming is the reality that they're going to face accountability. And accountability is something that, if I were to ask for one or two things in this nation that have been missing for years and years, accountability is one of them. And folks, I saw 1,000 people be arrested this week, didn't you? I saw state senators, county, representatives, for embezzlement, for pedophilia, for drugs, all week people were getting arrested. That means all these indictments that we've been waiting to be opened are being opened. These people are being physically arrested. The grand jury's done. They're being physically arrested and taken in. And so that time is upon us. And I was discussing this with Ralph Epperson yesterday. I said, look, Ralph, one thing we were assured in 2018 is that we had to win the Senate. We had to win the Senate because the Senate can overrule on an impeachment. And that's what it was all about. Okay? We didn't want to win the House, which is really difficult for us to understand. But we had to allow them to practice their nefarious acts. We had to allow them to do the impeachment, to do the virus, to do all this cover up, to do all these investigations. We had to allow it. And that's the most difficult thing. I remember the president saying one day, he said, and Q said it, reinforced it, said, I don't like the way this has got to play out. The how. I don't like the how. I understand the why, and I understand the when, and I understand what we're doing, but I don't necessarily like the how. And the reason they don't like the how is because they've had to let these people have the power so that they demonstrate how wicked, how evil they are. They've had to let them commit the crimes in front of us so that we go, wow, that's brazen. Look at that brazen crime. I'm so grateful that you folks come here to Powerful Words, but I got to say, last night I was sitting down by myself and saying, Lord, I'm so humble. I'm humbled by the whole thing that I don't know why they come, I don't know why folks come here. Now, I'm not some powerful character. I'm not some, writer, some famous person, I don't have that thing, that gotcha, that pizzazz that should be drawing people to me. But it's all the Lord. And so I've realized that's where we're at. We're at that point where everyone is beginning to see the importance of God in their lives. They're beginning to see that we kind of turn it off. I'm not going to say turn it off, but we turned, if there was a 1 to 10, we turned it down to 2 and kind of, put it in the back burner. And when I saw Californians this week, those people we put down for being, progressives and liberals, there were thousands of them on the beach singing praise to the Lord, man. And they went out on the beach and they were like, dude, stop us. And that is the courage that I equate with being an American. I equate with being a follower of Christ. You're just boldly courageous beyond expectation, and that's what we need. We need the return of that bold understanding, that bold proclamation of God's word, that complete understanding of who we are in character and purpose, and that we're willing to just go stand out and go, no, no, we're not doing what you want, and you can do whatever you want, but 100,000 of us will be here tomorrow. So you say what you got to say, and that's what I'm putting a call out there. I think if we had 3 million patriots show up in 30 major cities around the U.S., the ones that are under lockdown, the ones that are having difficulty, if we had 100,000 people show up at each city, not maybe on the same day or consecutively or throughout a month or whatever. 3 million patriots, that's less than 1%. That's less than 1% of the entire population. 100,000 in 30 cities. If we showed up and we just peacefully protested and said, look, this is our country. You act the fool at all you want, but we're gonna rein you in. And we're going to let you know that you're not going to destroy our country. You're not going to destroy our jobs. You're not going to steal our children from us. You're not going to corrupt their minds. And you're certainly not going to destroy this constitutional republic that the Lord gave us, because we're the stewards here. We're the gardeners. We're the ones who are responsible for maintaining this while the Lord went away to set a place for us. And so you need to be alerted to that fact that 100,000 people show up, 100,000 patriots, believers, of all different types and colors show up together. What are they going to say to that? It's like thousands of people showing up on the beach in California and singing to the Lord Jesus. What are you going to do? You're going to allow the optics of going out there and tackling a bunch of Christian moms while their hands in the air and singing to God? I don't think so. I think Gavin's bought his time is measured, and I think he realizes it, and I think a lot of them realize it. I mean, look at Tom Hanks escaping to another country. They know what's going on. They know that this is about to end, and it's not going to end well. And so, these folks in the halls of power are really trying to hold on to the last minute. But I wrote a tweet to him last night. I said, look, representatives and senators, who have been serving the Chinese, who have been serving the UN, who have been serving the New World Order, who have signed agreements with globalists, who are serving Nazism, communism, Salafism. You have an opportunity to retire right now and go and be held to accountability, be arrested at home. I said, if you stay in the House until this election is done, we're going to do it in the House. We're going to make sure it's as public as possible, because that's what you need. That's what this country needs. And so, their arrogance, if their arrogance makes them maintain that position where they want to stay, then that's up to them. But I think it's time to retire. I mean, you got somebody like Feinstein. She's been there 60 years. I mean, what else do you need to do? You're married to a billionaire. You've got billions of dollars. You do whatever you want to do, and you've been there 60 years. 60 years. I mean, I get public service, but 60 years? Come on. It's just time to draw a line, and we look at these folks who've been there for 30, 40, 50 years, and they just need to go home. They just need to pack it up and go home. Just go home. We've had enough. We've had enough. So let's begin to show some stuff today, and I just want you to know that God loved you so much that he put on human form, and he came into this mess of a world that we messed up, and he still lived a perfect life, loving his enemies, doing the righteous thing, and preaching the gospel, that we might have an example to follow. And then he let them beat him, spit on him, tear his beard out, whip him to near death. And then he carried that cross up that hill, and he climbed on it, and it amazed the people around him. He climbed on top of the cross so that they could nail him on there. He didn't wait for them to force him. This was voluntary, and he did that for you. He gave his life. He laid down his life to take on all the sins of the world, past and future, that he might win back, redeem you to himself, that you might have that relationship that was missing from the garden, that relationship where he could walk with you in the cool of the afternoon. And that's why he did it, because he loved you so much. And these enemies are ruthless because they just don't want you to observe that. Isn't that just horrific? Somebody that doesn't want you to enjoy time with your Father. That's just terrific. So let's go in and see what Caleb's got in mind today, because you never know what's packed inside that labyrinthian mind. Labyrinthian, that's me. Corinthian letter, labyrinthian brain cells. Yes, so let's see what we got here. We got this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that. Here we go. Okay, what is this? What is this? Folks, this is downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is called the Center of the Universe, and folks who've been to Tulsa will probably remember this, or they know this. This is called the Center of the Universe. What is the Center of the Universe? But this is officially the Center of the Universe is in Tulsa, according to them. So let's see what this is. I love finding the center of the universe. It kind of gives me a little bit of grounding. What do you think?
Next time you see this plant in your backyard, don't cut it down, because this is the best painkiller you'll ever find. Now, if you take a leaf or stem and squeeze it, you'll see a white...
Forgive me.
Philosophers and astronomers have searched for it for centuries, but many Tulsans already know the center of the universe is right downtown's tallest building. Storm meteorologist Kirsten Horn reveals the mysteries of a Tulsa must-see.
It is one of Tulsa's most fascinating and well-known phenomenon, the Center of the Universe, a landmark that stumps an estimated 10,000 visitors from across the country each year.
It's basically a focusing anomaly. You're standing in the middle of a circle that's caused by concrete benches.
It doesn't matter which direction you face or how loud you are. When you talk, your voice will hit these concrete walls around you, reverberate back, and create an echo that we know as the center of the universe. And how's this for a paradox? Anyone standing outside the circle won't hear what you hear.
Yeah.
I can't hear it at all. The landmark was originally located on the Boston Avenue Bridge, connecting the Greenwood District to downtown Tulsa. But there was no echo then. And
isn't that amazing? Just a wonderful anomaly that we don't expect, and it's just brilliant to see, what happens in the world. And they've evidently found the center of the universe. I thought that was cool. I'm going to stop the share for a second. Boo, 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 boo. Okay, let's see what we got here for you. We got something for you. Let me close a couple of those. Close this. Present that. Delete that, turn that up. It's all technical, folks. It's technical. Okay, I got something to read to you that I just wrote yesterday. And I really appreciate your time. I really do appreciate you folks giving me the opportunity to come before you and share what the Lord has placed upon my heart, the talents, the treasures that He's given me to share with you. And that's such a blessing. I mean, I was contemplating it last night. It's what is one of the greatest blessings in this world, and that is knowing what your God-given purpose is. Because if we know what your God-given purpose is, then you can really, truly have the opportunity to reach fulfillment in this life. Because that's fulfillment. Is realizing what the Creator designed you to do and then doing it. This is called Can't Define. I wrote this yesterday. What is the essence of an argument so complex that it takes an afternoon just to build a solid outline of the occurrences, leaving implication and outcome unspoken? Where do you start when explaining hydrogen or familiarizing the acolyte with the essential importance of water in human existence? These are the deep, dark, and fauna-filled waters into which I must venture in the hope of providing perspective to those who have never, nor will ever, venture the depths of this floundering tale. What is science? Google says it is the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of a physical and natural world through observation and experiment. So, Google concedes, as does Webster's, that science is the study of the physical and the natural world. Therefore, science being limited to those parameters is irrelevant in the pursuit of spirituality, of those things which are inherently non-physical. With that foundation set, let us venture to the origin of this necessary but self-directing discussion. I shall let the hand of God guide my presentation, as He is the only part of my conscience that understands the origins and histories about which I am going to refer. In the garden, we have a man who is blessed with enormous power and title, being the first human and having the responsibility for naming, tending after, and directing the garden he had been given by the benevolence of God. We know that science, although it would like to describe God, has already admitted its incapacity to venture into that which is extra-physical. So in describing God, we will look to the Bible, which describes him as a God who loves, provides, and wishes to spend time with his creation. Man knows his place, his duty, and that the powerful God he serves has very specific enumerated rules that man is required to respect. Enter wife, woman, partner, Eve. Now man is no longer alone in his journey through life and is someone to share his joy, story, and life with and against. They both are, for a period of time, were certainly content in the system of living, tending, and being provided for through the lush surroundings of their benevolent God. At some point, though, a deceiver entered the picture, a powerful, clever, fallen spirit who piques Eve's curiosity with an alternate explanation of God, a scientific explanation. The description reduces God from sovereign and unique status as the one and only God to a position of one who perhaps maintains authority through ruse, and in fact may be bested or equaled by those partaking of the fruits of a tree in the garden, the one tree from which they have been instructed to never eat. As Eve ingests this fruit, whether it be hallucinogenic or otherwise, that has the power to convey to the imbiber the knowledge of God, good and evil, and make one like God, she is deceived into believing the scientific explanation of God. A created being has used the power of the words of creation to describe that which science has admittedly determined it cannot define. Eve is empowered with her science and the worldly understanding that the fruit imparts and cannot wait to inculcate man. I immediately find myself coaxing man, Adam, as he is named, to not listen to his wife and refrain from disobeying God. But Adam makes a choice. He chooses this world and its science over God's offer, fully understanding the implications of his action. He decides. Once this place, the worldly is born. Once this takes place, the worldly is born. Satan sees his wishes become truth, and though he never creates anything per se, he has now warped God's creation to provide a new aspect of humanism that will forever provide the dichotomy of man's choice in this world, God or science. The ferocity of God's response creates something else of which they are unfamiliar, prophecy. As God tells all involved what shall come about as a result of their actions, in banishing them from the garden, they are prohibited from eating of the tree of everlasting life and being permanently cast into hopelessness, that their predicament may not be corrected. God makes a way for his prophecy to come about. Now, Satan in his science has a mission to continually deceive the world into pursuing science instead of God and to stop God's prophecy from manifestation. He has been effective in deceiving previously and believes himself amenable and adequate to the task. Men begin following the science of their own will, determining that they do not want the everlasting promises of God's blessing, but instead the creature and very real pleasures that this life brings. Most men live 800 to 900 years at that time, which provides ample time to enjoy the fruits of man's efforts. Yet as God sees their wickedness, he begins to regret having created man, as their thoughts are always of violence, sin, and evil. Man turns to the fallen and develops great cities through science that God never meant for man to comprehend. The seven sciences are now deemed sacred, and the relationship with the fallen in power of the science and the fruit of the tree they found in the garden become the pursuit of man's passion. The fallen in their wickedness want to be worshipped, and so begin to place expectations upon man of human sacrifice of human women for wicked sexual sacrifice, and the donation of lives of the recently born or unborn to promote the favor of these scientific little gods. Man becomes something other than God intended. Yet he still has a way planned and open ahead. The bloodline has been tainted now. There's only one remaining family from whom the line of Savior may flourish, Noah. Noah must be preserved and the rest of humanity destroyed. The flood, biblical, overwhelming, perfect in refreshing the planet. But the spirit beginnings, the beings, the fallen, would escape this judgment, having the capacity to use their science to move between the dimensions of creation. The nations begin, and it is not long before the fallen return, coaxing man into the pursuit of science, war, power, and promiscuity. There only remains two ways of obedience and disobedience, or dependence upon God's word and the provision, the other promises of this world, and the science of man and the fallen. As man went forward, we grew increasingly hostile to the things of God, sacrificing our children, building wonders, and looking for the signs of great power to which we could pay sacrifice to gain power of our own. But God still had a plan to save mankind. Abraham heard this call and obeyed, and out of that obedience, the line of the innocent, the dependent upon God, would be made manifest and grow until the final battle where God would judge all wickedness, including the fallen, for all eternity. The faithful were born and promised through covenant sanctified by God himself, committing him to deliver on his promises to the chosen people, the Jews. But man in his rebellious nature again pursued the powers and passions of this world, giving themselves to child sacrifice and scientific ritual, seeking daily blessing instead of God's eternal provision and protection. So God gave them over, as he had prophesied through Moses, to their unjust.
Somewhere and, have a conference and set forward what they're going to do in the year. But they happen to have it at a place which is a nuclear fallout and secret spy hideout. And so a garbage truck hit the train, or the train hit the garbage truck, technically. One person was killed, and it was nasty. I mean, when you look at pictures from that event, and Q told us back at that time about that crash, an anonymous had said, TikTok, was the train accident an FF today? And our friend answered, do you believe in coincidences? Expect more. So this week, just the minute all these accidents started happening, and then Nadler says he was in a car accident and is an hour late, I didn't see any bruises or anything on the Penguin, did you? I mean, besides the fact that he's a permanent mar on this planet. And then this happens with Pence twice on the way for the cops for Trump, when everything's about defunding the police, right? And then you got hijinks happening in Alaska, which at this point, every election is hijinks in Alaska. They got a lot of oil money and stuff up there, just saying. And then you got, just all brought me back to that whole train crash scenario. So planes, trains, and automobiles. Q has told us, Chinese chips possibly, that, driving your car's not what it used to be. Let's just say that. Q's told us that. I think, what did he say? 2 in 10 plane crashes are actually a plane crash or something like that, right?
7 out of 10 aren't an accident.
That's right. So what did you guys think about this? I see, I'm looking out in chat. What do you think about that, Rick? Did this kind of stick out for you as well when you saw this news? Rooster, what did you think about when you heard about the 2 car crashes for Mike Pence?
There's always something funny going on. The plane crash in Alaska last night, when we was doing Patriot Roundtable with myself, No Regrets, and Spirit Warrior, we kind of dug into it. and the guy was flying. The state representative was flying by himself in a plane, and apparently he was an instructor. So there's something funny going on with that, you know.
I mean, to be fair, you have to, you know, Alaska, the best way to get around are to be a pilot or a small plane, you know, a very isolated place, cities, or I guess more towns in Alaska. So to be fair, you would expect there to be more problems in Alaska. And I'm not going to get into it now, but you can look over the history of governors of Alaska, politicians in Alaska, sides of mountains in Alaska. Alaska is just a scary place. And of course, what happened, we were talking last week, I think, about Bill Barr's little secret mission to Alaska to speak to Native Americans about missing women and children. And then the president signed an executive order regarding missing Native American, Alaska Native women and children. And then I see Mark Essa saying, and Trump just signed executive order to drill on the Alaska's North Shore. So a lot, you know, there's a lot of, we'll just call it resources in Alaska that some people may be dipping into that they should not be. Because, of course, you may not know this, but in Alaska, there's the way they form the state, the oil is like publicly owned. So when people, I don't know the details, but if you're an Alaska citizen, you get a check as your dividend on the oil that's pumped in Alaska. So, you know, a lot of money floating around, a lot of stuff floating around, very little oversight. So there's that. And I add my last Alaska thing, which we may or may not have covered on this show, is many people do not know that after HRC, I believe, graduated from high school, then she went to prep school, somewhere in that area, maybe after prep school and before college. She made a speech and actually made the headlines for being like an anti-government lunatic in this speech and insulting some local politicians. It was a commencement speech at her school, and she had some criticism from that, and they interviewed her, and she said that she would be spending the summer in Alaska. And so she and some other young people her age went to Alaska and disappeared, in essence. There have been investigative reporters who have gone up there and tried to find anyone remembering HRC staying at a hotel with students or what have you, which you would remember. I mean, because, I mean, if you met HRC in Alaska, where there really aren't that many people, quite frankly, you would remember. Anyway, when asked why she was going to Alaska, she said she went up there because she was working in a fish cannery. Then... Okay, yeah. So she stayed friends with one of her fellow students that went up there. And that friend, and I don't remember the details, but she was young, mysteriously died the week before Hillary married Bill Clinton. So that's another weird Alaska story. Then there's the whole Joe Miller won the election, and then Lisa Murkowski, a very hard name to spell correctly, mysteriously had a write-in campaign and won her Senate seat, even though she was not the GOP candidate. She was a write-in candidate, yet everyone acts like she was elected as a GOP candidate, like a total memory wash, like, you know, you did not see this, you do not see this, but it happened. So that's my little Alaska rant. And don't get me wrong, I love Alaska, but what the heck is going on in Alaska on any given day? So that was a little side trip.
Yeah,
Did you guys know? Did they even know about the So you guys know about the HRC stuff in Alaska?
No.
Not a bit. That's the first thing I've heard about it. In a fish cannery.
Right. I'm telling you right now.
I'm afraid to eat. I'm afraid to eat canned salmon now. You never know how many bodies she's thrown in those canneries.
I'll just tell you this. I'm sorry. I don't know of any young ladies who go to finishing school from Park Ridge, Illinois, who couldn't wait to get Alaska and stick their hands in dead fish and smear guts all over the place and stay at a student hostel. Just saying. Just isn't a part of my world.
No.
That reeks and it smells worse than dead fish.
Right, it's real. I went and found the newspaper which talked about it. This is not on the internet, I don't think. It's actually a newspaper. It's from a long time ago, and I do recall seeing an interview with an investigative journalist who went to Alaska to try to figure out where these young prep school students actually went. So, 60 miles is not far to Russia. That would be one thought. But, oh no, Russia's not close to Alaska. Sarah Palin's crazy. So, very interesting stuff. All right. So, that was just a weird observation from this week. So, then we also got the news. This is also from previous posts. John Brennan is blacked from assessing the classified information. So remember, we were told that John Brennan had his security clearance pulled, and then it was reported everywhere that that was simply not true. Yes, Debbie Wolgemuth, we need to look for Camp Satan in Alaska. So then we find out this week that Brennan has written in his forthcoming book, Undaunted, My Fight Against America's Enemies at Home and Abroad, that after months of haggling, he discovered the CIA was abiding by the directive Trump gave in August 2018 that purportedly forbid anyone in the intelligence community from sharing classified information with me. Oh, man. I mean, it's just like, so that everyone at CNN, wasn't he a contributor at CNN or was it MSNBC? I forget. But if they would have said his security clearance was pulled at the time it was actually pulled, then why would you hire him to be leaking on live TV? So you had all the media run cover. Oh, no, he still has a security clearance. The information he's putting out there, he's getting that right off government documents, right? That's my theory why they did that. So then the White House confirms the directive was being enforced, which is news considering the New York Times reported in May of last year that the president never revoked Brennan's security clearance. So, wah, 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 wah. Big liar. I mean, it just keeps going on and on. So, as a reminder from our friends post 1336, it said, example, Clinton Foundation, post-election layoffs, right? So after HRC lost, they laid off pretty much everyone at the Clinton Foundation. So with no access or control equals no donations. Today, New Zealand donations restart. Others, why? Well, we found out, well, we'll talk about it in a minute. 1, selling secrets. 2, selling future access or gain control and power. Or 3, selling silence. Read below slow and carefully. Five Eyes. Why do former dignitaries still hold security clearances? So if you don't know that, for you guys that are kind of new on this, whole adventure. Former dignitaries who leave government keep their security clearance. And we did a deep dive on this. This is back in the spring of 2018. And the excuse they give is that, oh, well, the new administration might call on us with our, experience and knowledge to have us get access to some of the things they're working on so we can advise them with our wisdom, etc. Then at that time, a bunch of articles were released where former officials were saying, oh no, having a security clearance isn't worth millions and millions and millions of dollars when I go work for another company. That's a lie. Oh, man. So the answer is that the former dignitaries, right, they hold a security clearance in theory because they can help out the new administration. U.S. to U.S. So that means if you're in the United States and you try to access, classified information in the U.S., that is logged, flagged, and recorded. Now, if you're a U.S. person who's in New Zealand and you try to access classified information through the Five Eyes computer system, if you're actually in New Zealand, there's no logs, no flags, and no record of you accessing that information. And that equals U.S. security clearance, authorized Five Eyes view, plus take documents. You can print them out and take them. Read above, slow and carefully. Now, we do recall, remember Hillary wrote that book? The one that's in the bargain bin at the dollar store, that book? Remember that she went on a book tour, didn't she? She went to New Zealand. Who else went to New Zealand? Well, everybody went to New Zealand. John Kerry went to New Zealand, climate change and all. John Podesta went down to New Zealand. You name it, everyone's in New Zealand. Isn't that weird? And of course, that book tour, they sell lots and lots of Hillary Clinton books in New Zealand. Interesting. Why do we allow former dignitary security clearance? Which we already answered that. And then our friend says, welcome to the deep state. So I remember when I read this post back in 2018, I was like, palm to the forehead, like, duh. Yeah, I mean, how many of these people who are running around with security clearances, with book tours or whatever, all over the place, and how long has this been going on? Welcome to the deep state. It's like, Hotel California. They check in and they never check out, right? So that was kind of like a big wake-up call to me. I mean, I knew people made money off their security clearances, but wow, it's like a little club, huh? You either got a security clearance or you don't. Well, Mr. Brennan, bye-bye. You're out of the club. So I'm looking here at you guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wonder, even if Brennan's took off the list, wouldn't he just go to one of his friends like Comey or some of the others and just say, hey, can you get this for me next time you're in the closet?
Right, but then, I suppose you could say if he doesn't have a security clearance and someone gives him information he's not cleared for, then that someone has committed a criminal act. Whereas the rest of these people, like how far back are we going here? We got I don't know, think of people in the Carter administration who are still alive. Do they all still have their security clearances? I mean, how many people have them out there? And so if they can get one of their friends in the government to kind of read them into something that's being worked on, then they get clearance to look at that stuff related to that topic. So, and then we got these people working at CNN. Charles Pelkey says more like Roach Motel. That's right. These government people, they check into the Roach Motel and they never check out. So yeah, this is crazy. I don't think most people realize that all these people running around on TV and stuff who are former this, former that, how many of them have a security clearance, and how many of them have a friend on the inside who's putting them on the list for distribution of classified information? So it's like a little racket. And then if you have that information, you can go consult at any kind of company, for example, related to investments, hedge funds. How about all these security firms? Like John Brennan started a security firm as a company, right? Well, if you have access to government information, then you are worth your million, trillion, zillion dollar salary because you got the inside scoop on everything. You know what's coming, you know what's been, you know what technical information. So yeah. So, us regular people, if you work at a company where you have proprietary information, what happens when you get fired or you quit? They make you sign a non-disclosure, right? And you're not allowed to sometimes work in that industry for like 5 years for a non-compete contract. So, I've had to sign those. So, but these guys, the deep state gets to do whatever they want. Mark says, who is using the security clearance for Vince Foster? Yeah, that's another good question. When you die, do they purge you out of the system? If it's anything like our voter rolls, there's millions of security clearances just kind of floating around.
Yeah, just open up the wallet, open up the purse, pull it out like a credit card. Here, swipe this.
So this was floating around. I'm not sure what I think about this. I'm kind of lukewarm on this. But because it was related to the first post from our friend, then I thought I'd mention it. So here is Trump, and he was giving a speech on October 28th, and he had 33rd use here on this sign. And some of our autists noticed and said, is it notable that Q has been posting for exactly 33 months to the day, and Q Plus is standing in front of two big 33s? So here was post number one, which indeed was October 28th, 2017. So kind of interesting, I guess. Not sure about that. Other big news this week is Herman Cain, unfortunately, has passed away. And so you got to kind of put this all together. Of course, I'll have a little personal story about Herman Cain because he was a Tea Partier. So Herman Cain had said that masks will not be mandatory for the event, which will be attended by President Trump. People are fed up. So Herman Cain came here to Tulsa, right? And he was not worried about wearing a mask in all circumstances. Then we have Mika Brzezinski, talk about deep state. Just the facts. Herman Cain went to the @Real Donald Trump Tulsa super spreader rally. No mask. The campaign squashed people close to the crowd, so the crowd would look bigger. They cheered for their president for hours. Cain tested positive for COVID 9 days later. Now Herman Cain is dead. This woman is evil, man. Evil. So right up before Herman Cain was announced to be dead, he had said, we know it's been a few days since we last gave you an update on the boss, but he is still in the hospital being treated with oxygen for his lungs. In the meantime, the doctors say other organs and systems are strong. And so I actually saw some other posts that seem to have gone missing. And everyone was really kind of not worried about Herman Cain because he seemed to be doing fine. And they even reported on it. Like this is a Christian paper. Herman Cain still alive with coronavirus despite rumors of death, team confirms. So prior to the announcement that he was dead, there were all kinds of rumors going around that he had passed. So just very, very weird. What concerns me about this, and I'm accusing no one of anything, is that it's a narrative builder. And by that I mean what Mika said here. He went to Tulsa, now he's dead. No mask. So I don't know what to think about it. I think that the way this played out was very weird. But a lot of weird things have played out for Herman Cain. As I mentioned, he was a Tea Party candidate back in the day when he ran for president, right? And ironically, when he first started really getting attention and he had some good polling numbers, Illinois Tea Party, and that would be Denise, who appeared on the show like 2 weeks ago, my friend Denise, she had a big Tea Party rally or convention, I guess, with a whole bunch of people there in Illinois. And one of the last minute additions as a speaker was Herman Cain, who diverted all his plans to fly in to Illinois to attend this convention. So while he was at the convention in the back room, and my friend Denise and many others were back there, and I was standing right in front, or actually sitting right in front of the curtain. So this was like backstage. This crazy woman, Sharon Bielek, who had been in radio ad sales, rushes up and gets a picture taken with Herman Cain. And this Sharon Bielek lived in Lake Point Towers in Chicago. And apparently she was behind on her condo payments, right? And you know who else lived in that tower? David Axelrod, just coincidentally. Anyway, Sharon Bielek accused Herman Cain of sexual impropriety, which, hey, we hear about that every day nowadays. But back in this time, it was a big deal. You know, they were accusing, I'll hate to say it, the black man of touching a white woman, and made a big deal about it. I can't remember if it was Lisa Bloom or Gloria Allred that got involved. Herman Cain dropped out of the presidential race, and then the case was dropped. What most people don't know is after that, the same woman, Sharon Bielek, she then went on to accuse Bill Curtis, who is Bill Curtis is a Chicago newsman. He's been around forever, and he's super uptight guy, super straight cut. I don't know how else to say it. She went after him and said that he made unwanted sexual advances of her. Well, isn't that weird, I mean, she's an attractive woman, I guess. I don't know. But it's weird how a lot of these women, when they go after one, they don't stop. They go after another. Of course, we saw the leaked text messages and other communications in between Gloria Allred and that whole little gang of Me Too lawyers with a woman where they were enticing her to spice up a story about Trump. Remember that? So anyway, interesting observation. This Breitbart article is actually written by Joe Pollak, who, by the way, was a Tea Party congressional candidate in Illinois up in Evanston. And many, many of us walked for Joel Pollak before he went over to Breitbart, including Breitbart, who came to meet Joel and help him. So Blue State Blues, John Lewis smeared the Tea Party. Herman Cain defended it. And that's true. So just wanted to say something about Herman Cain. Now, I am aware of other memes and side-by-sides out there, guys, but I'm not going to accuse Herman Cain of things that I don't know about. That could be some heavy-duty trolling, so I'm not going there. These are things I do know about Herman Cain. And like I said, I met him. I really don't know what else there might be, but I know these things are true. And I think Mika is a sicko for what she said. So I'm looking at you guys in chat.
You know,
interesting question. Aaron, go ahead.
Back in 2011, I used to work on the Herman Cain campaign online.
Oh, really?
Because, I mean, because, I mean, okay, I had seen his camp or his opening speech, you know, when he declared, and I was like, yes, and, you know, like all fired up. And the next thing I used to work for the campaign online, you know, tweeting out and posting on Facebook. And then when he had dropped out, you know, I mean, it hurt in a way, but then in another way, it didn't, because of the fact that, you know, at least I had a start, and that's what got me to where I am now.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, Herman Cain really fired people up there for his short run as for president. You know, he kind of came out of nowhere, I guess, at least from my perspective. I guess he, you know, some people in other states knew more about him.
Yeah.
But he came out of nowhere for me in Illinois, and, you know, I was willing to listen to what he had to say. But this is dangerous, in my opinion, with this whole COVID thing. You know, I don't know what to think about it. I'll be honest with you. It seems like, you know, you don't really know all that many people. Well, I can't really say that because I just don't know that many people, period, because I'm in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. But, like, just in my general experience, it seems kind of strange that, like, kind of what are the chances? I don't know. I mean, I was at the rally. My son was at the rally. Tons of people were at the rally, and the death rate in Oklahoma is still low. Yeah, some hospitals dumped testing results all on the same day, and it spiked up, which is a whole nother story. But at least in Oklahoma, there's an asterisk that indicates that. So.
And we do have a caller. We have a good friend, AOC, on that. You want me to pull him up? Okay. Hello, AOC.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Hey, AOC, how you doing today?
Oh, wonderful. It's another day in paradise. University was trying to get me to come on and share a little bit of the dive I was doing, but so I figured I would see if I could squeeze in here.
Okay, great.
And it was on 4598, which is and we were told about to watch this one, to follow this one for days after the. So, and I can see why now.
Which one is it? You said 4950. You're talking about post 4958?
4598.
Yeah, I'm not dyslexic. 4598. Okay, I'll bring that up.
All in text channel on Discord that was maybe 60% of what we'd uncovered that got put into a tweet anyway. And it's a bunch of them. But the long and the short of it is the pen, just like the Gematria for Starwalker, which was the model of the Mont Block pen in the, last December post. That was the same Gematria as Donald J. Trump. So I thought that would be significant. If you do Mercer, like the Mercer pen, everybody was looking at Pompeo's dog or General Mercer back in the day with the Durham boats, But anyway, when you do the Gematria, the first hit is Gates. And I grew up in that area, and I knew that Bill Gates lived right about in that direction from Mercer Island. So I just took a quick Google Maps snapshot of Lake Washington, and I took that pen picture from the Catherine Herridge post and laid it over and just, made half opacity so it's see-through onto the map. And lo and behold, when you put the end of the top of the pen without twisting, it's all north is north and south is south. You put the top of the pen on Xanadu 2.0, which is the name of Bill Gates' mansion. And the tip of the pen goes to the very tippy top of the north end of Mercer Island.
Yeah, I'm looking. So I brought up this is a post. I'm looking at what you have put in there for us. Call and text. Yeah. I saw that picture with the pen, and I was like, I don't know.
What I was thinking. And then I zoomed in on the giant star squiggle there.
Right. I don't see that picture of the pen thing. Is that like in the thread?
It's in there. It's in there. There's like 22, 23.
Oh, okay. Let me look through the thread here and see if I can find it.
But this is pretty complex in that it employs several ciphers that have been used in previous Q drops. Definitely Gematria, Jewish Gematria probably reaffirms about 8 things within the drops that we're getting pointed to because, Q's using these words for note the pens in brackets, C class with 1 S is in brackets. The post it refers to 3570 within that post. That has August in capitals and hot in capitals. So if you do the normal kinds of things, like the things that are all caps or, in brackets, I always try Gematria on that, but if they work, and they all seem to. But and what the tweet doesn't even get into is just laying it down that way without trying to line it up. It goes through Mercer Island High School where
we don't have that picture.
Yeah.
It's not in that thread, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So did you send that to me last week? Someone sent it to me last week. And I kind of looked at it, but that was you? Okay, then I can get it from there.
Cool. Yeah, there's just plenty to dig on. We don't need to, dump it all on you right this second here, but I do want to direct people's attention to this.
Oh, sorry.
It went quite deep. And then all of a sudden people started posting drone footage of that on an account made the day. I think it was a day after we had done the Patriots Rising. We went through a lot of this for about an hour and a half, and it was pretty interesting to say the least. But anyway.
So Patriots Rising, you guys had a rally, right?
What's that? A rally?
Yeah, Patriots Rising. Wasn't there a rally? Was that you? You like last time you were on here, you said something about it, and then your phone died.
Oh yeah, we were just doing a show on this Q drop on 4598.
Oh, okay, that's what it was.
It was last Thursday night or Friday morning. I don't know. I'm on the left coast, so it was an all morning, all night for me for sure. But anyway, there's plenty in here, but the summary is really easily, and I didn't think so. I just would wonder. I wondered if the map overlay would do anything, and as soon as I zoomed in on that star, I see a spiral. I zoom in on Google Earth, and it's a giant, several hundred feet wide sculpture that's, on all accounts, a satanic child sacrifice altar.
Right. Without the picture, we can't really talk about it. Yeah, I get sent. I don't think you sent it to me, and I'm just kind of scanning through who might have, and I don't see it. If anyone wants to send it to me, we can look at it. Yeah, I mean, Q is a very mysterious thing, and there's different levels of, I believe, different levels. I don't do gematria. I don't want to do gematria. It's just not in my wheelhouse. So I let other people handle that kind of stuff, if that makes sense. And I look at it.
I always do it if I'm directed to, if it's an obvious phrase or quotes or stuff like that. Oftentimes you'll find things that it's just one tool of many to decode it. But this employs many of these. And gematria is one of them. And,
so what's the bottom line on this? So just to describe what it was somebody took the angles of Catherine Herridge's pen and superimposed it on a map of the general region around
I did that.
Bill Gates' house, right? So what's the conclusion on that? I never saw the end of it. I just saw the pen on a picture of Bill Gates' house.
The conclusion, as far as I can tell, is the story of the infiltration by the Communist Party into the United States of America through Mercer Island High School, Subud cult, whose director was Loretta Fuddy, whose members were Stanley Ann Dunham, Obama's mama, and all along the edge of that map, right, of the Catherine Herridge photo with that Mercer pen in it, the edges go through that Mercer Island High School, through the Bill Gates mansion, through Stanley Ann Dunham's and Obama's first house in Seattle, which is literally the gateway to Chaz, right? And Subud is on the left side of that map, which is, again, where Stanley Ann Dunham went to school, went to, not to school, but where she was a part of that as well, the Subud.
Right, ironically, that information, was verified by, you guessed it, Dr. Corsi. That's right out of his book. I don't know if you know that. I looked at those pictures. So here's the story. So Obama, Stanley Obama, if I believe I'm going to get this right, and this is totally from memory. So she may or may not have married Mr. Obama. Probably not, but who knows? She gets pregnant, and so we're told she lived with Obama, but researchers found that at the time she claims she was living with Mr. Obama as a new mother with a young baby, she at the same time was enrolled in school, in college, in Seattle, and living in, it's basically like a house. And you see this in college towns. It's a house where somebody converted their second floor into like an apartment to rent to college students. And the woman on the first floor babysat little baby Barack Obama while Stanley Ann, or Ann as she's known, went to college in Seattle. So that is counter to the narrative that Obama has, that his parents got married and were living in Hawaii and actually lived together when Barack Obama was a little baby. So you can't be living in Hawaii and enrolled in not correspondence courses, but actual physical college classes in Seattle at the same time. So we got paperwork on her being in Seattle.
Yeah, and she enrolled apparently when Barack was 2 weeks old.
Yes,
really?
I think I mean, if you were pregnant, let's just put it this way, if you were an unwed mother, you know, and other people tell you that, you know, in most prior times in American society, if you were an unwed mother, it's possible that your parents would help you get out of town. I'm just going to say it that way. And we'll call it allow you your privacy. That would be very common. And also, you know, if you were a college student who got pregnant and had this baby with no one helping you, you might also want for an arrangement where you have a babysitter downstairs so that you can continue school and be away from maybe the man, Obama. Maybe the parents didn't want her around him, or we have other thoughts about who the father might be. Who knows? But they got her out of town. She went back to the mainland, and she was living in this arrangement with the babysitter and going to school in Seattle. That we know. There aren't that many Stanley Ann Durhams that are marked female.
No, for sure. And we do have plenty of sauce when you just go around the map and the things that are either, you know, the edges of this photo or scribbles like it all lines up with I-90 bridge, for example. The squiggles on the left-hand side of that photo line up perfectly with I-90 bridge and the satanic ritual and all of these Bill Gates, the two richest men in the world. So both Bezos and Bill Gates run right through that pen, right? Literally, and go to Mercer, just like we were told to follow the pen to where? To Mercer. And it lines up so perfectly to within, a quarter of a degree, you're off, and it's not going to line up at all. So is it a coincidence? I don't know. Check the gematria. Gematria, Mercer equals Gates. Mercer Island equals Paul Allen. Oh, he's on the map too?
Right. So now, I'm sorry, I want to stop you. So Mercer Island, correct me if I'm wrong, Mercer Island isn't that near where the missile was shot from?
Exactly. Well, that was Whitney. More Whidbey Island, but it's connected. Bill Gates can get there from his submarine.
Oh, wait a minute. Is Mercer Island where the Q plane crashed? Why do we know Mercer Island? What's the significance of Mercer Island? Sorry.
It connects the world's largest floating bridge, which was sunk. And 23 years after they rebuilt it, very deep statey. Other than that, it's the home of, it was where the Mercer Island High School, all the faculty swore to the anti-American committee in Congress that, yes, they were active Communist Party members. So in history, that was a big deal. It was the Little Red Schoolhouse. And then the only church that they went to, which was the same kind of church as the one in Chicago that Obama said he attended when he was claiming to be Christian, which had a history of communism. No, they were all travelers, fellow travelers called them.
Right.
But that's where, so much is going on this tweet that lines up perfectly, and it all has to do with satanic ritual. It's all backed up by gematria. It's all backed up by just what's in the post. You know, I don't make this stuff up. This is what the Q team chose to put these words in brackets and these pictures in here. The Catherine Herridge tweet also has three pluses in it. In the third tweet that was, you know, focused on by the Q team. And blinking red was in quotes on the first tweet. So that was something else that was all relative. And it has been days and days, and more people, the Ladies United, Magic said she's got a whole other dump that she found on it too. So it seems to be lining up pretty good. We're all convinced after talking about it for hours and hours. No coincidence, and there's a lot here. So, but that's a summary. It's really the whole history of how this came to be, and why are the two richest men there, and the richest charitable giving in the planet, and 800 islands.
Right. Well, we know that Bill Gates' father was on the early board member on Planned Parenthood, and his grandfather was involved in the actual eugenics movement back, you know, when the eugenics movement was a thing, and states were actually murdering babies if they were had physical or mental disabilities. I mean, it's horrendous what they were doing. Indiana being the state that we always point at.
You know where they kept those kids? In a schoolhouse for delinquent kids, right under that star on the Catherine Herridge post. It was Luther Burbank Park now, who was a eugenicist, who invented the russet potato and the kumquat and a million other things, but he was doing gene splicing, and he was very much, if he wasn't best friends with Bill Gates' father, I don't know who else would have been.
So there were these eugenics societies, and it was part of a philosophical movement, and so there was many people who were very wealthy or influential, a lot of them academics, and they all belonged to kind of like these eugenics societies, and they were high society, very influential. They owned newspapers, they worked in academia, they were out there openly talking about this stuff. That's what you call the progressive era. You know, progressivism being improving the humans and human race. Unfortunately, by murdering people and preventing marriages, that's when they started the whole where you have to get a blood test to get married. They hated like Appalachia. They hated Scotch-Irish people. That's where you started really demonizing certain ethnic groups. And they were fellow travelers. And so, you know, my impression is their children and grandchildren are still a part of this certain segment of the people who rule over us. So
and the guy that was the leader of the Subud, though, back to Subud in Indonesia, that's the guy you look at him and you superimpose the photo and you go, yeah, that's Obama's real daddy, for sure. And he was hanging out in those circles when Stanley Ann Dunham was there. So, you know, it just makes sense. See, we've already gone over Loretta Fuddy at nauseum, but she was the director of Subud, and that was in Seattle. And that was right, it's in this Q post directly. They're all lined up with each other. Bill Gates Foundation is on that same line.
You keep saying it's in the Q post, but we don't have the Q post. I don't understand where it is.
It's within there. I broke it down just bit by bit, line by line, so I wouldn't miss anything, right? And I still haven't completed it as far as this tweet goes, so I apologize for that. I'll send you some more.
Right. No, I did see this. It's good work. Oh, here it is. Okay, that's weird. All right, we got it finally, guys. It was I swear that Twitter like breaks threads, but then you go in with the app and it's not broken. It's really weird. So let me try to, and now it won't let me share it. So I'm going to get this. Let me try copying the link. See, it's so weird. I copy the link and it disappears it. Let me try doing it this way. I know how to get around this. Hold on. Right, this is the problem with doing work on Twitter, is that they're going to disappear your work. If they're going to find a way to break those links.
Yeah, they're pretty good at it.
So I know I know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use this app. I'm going to try to drag this over here while I have it, and there we go.
So,
boom, got it. Look,
no.
It disappeared it again. Here we go.
For the target.
So here's the pen superimposed over the Seattle area, and you can sort of see here like how the pen points at spots of interest on the map of Seattle area. And then that we were just talking about, the pen said Mercer on it, and we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
And so here's a close-up of the property there. And then here's the gematria we already saw.
And there is a lot more references than I would normally post. I don't like follow gematria all the time, but when a Q post looks like I'm supposed to follow it, it's led to, future is proved past. When I followed that, it led me to December 3rd last time. The first time I ever said, oh, hey, I got a prediction. Something's going to happen with Google on December 3rd. And I was like, that's what I read. And it was all backed up. But then Google's CEO stepped down on December 3rd. And I said, I was right there. I get part of this. I know how to read these comms when it's wording like this. I sort of get where he wants it. None of it's totally 100%. But when you take 10 different pieces of data that's in this post and you run it through different things, not just gematria here, but the references to the very first one, the timestamp, 1509, which goes to a post of Barack as a young man with his gay lover sitting on the couch. And that post is about digging into his history and what's this connection to. So from the very first timestamp, we're getting clues to Obama's past, right? And then his mother, and then, Bill Gates and eugenicists and satanic worship and all these spots that line up on this island and in Seattle, which if you grew up there and were into conspiracy theories, you would, and through this Q movement, 11/3 wasn't just about the election. That was the predictive program date for an event in Seattle. And The Economist magazine had stuff on that, they're creepy, futuristic covers they do once a week. Simpsons had predictive programming, just like 9/11, around Seattle on this date.
Right, so here's the park, the Luther Burbank Park, with some people are calling this a child sacrifice location. It does, when you look at I look carefully at this because everyone knows I study archaeology. And the stone with the basin with the channel is actually the way that ancient sacrifice stones often looked. So I'm going to put this in the definite, in an archaeological sense, or we'll say history sense. This is very disturbing and creepy.
And there's a huge dig just on that. So the name of that piece of art, we'll put in quotes, is called The Source.
Yes.
Just, on the gematria side, The Source also shared the same as the bridge. And there was all these things related to that. You could go down a pretty deep rabbit hole, but every step of the way, it wasn't like you'd have to dig for it. It was the first 3 and 4 results would totally make sense. So and this, it's 220 feet deep and 3 feet high, according to the art. Why is it 220 feet deep? What's underneath that? The mound, the spiral-shaped mound.
Right now, strangely, the spiral-shaped mounds like that, there's many. I mean, when I looked at it, it looks Celtic. But there's also Celts. There's also mounds like this that are Native American. But, I mean, you could go a lot of different directions with the spiral shape like that.
Yeah, but it happens to be on the site where dozens and dozens and dozens of delinquent children were kept on parole and were whipped with razor straught by Dr. Reed, who is in charge of the school for delinquent youth. And
so when you say they were kept there, what are you saying the children were? How can you keep a child in a park? Did there used to be a fence or something here?
Before they created the Luther Burbank Park, it was this school with this very shady history. So when you were just talking about, the children and stuff, it's like, derelict children, delinquent children, whatever. This is what they called them, and this is where they kept them. And it just happens to be on the same site as where this ritual-looking artwork. And if you know the Seattle art world, which I do, because the pedophile that I fought against that got me into the politics in the first place, he was a big art world guy. This organization called 4 Culture is what they're called now, with the number 4, was littering King County with all of this satanic and pedophilic kind of art in public places. And I think I don't have thoughts on this, but I know they're connected to all of this in this era of this kind of art.
Now, I remember, like in the 80s, when the so-called satanic panic thing happened, and then that was memory hold, like it never happened. I remember even back then, Seattle was like in the middle of the whole satanic panic story. Seattle, like just sort of the Northwest, was sort of ground zero for that. And then we had, other cities like Memphis and various places come into play. But that was a big deal in the 80s. I was a kid and a teenager in the 80s, and it was spooky stuff. They were like showing stuff on TV about creepy stuff like this all the time. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I totally remember that. I was in Oregon until the late 80s, and I moved to Seattle late 80s. So
now I got here, since I found this hoard, here's a picture of the house that was the address on the school record, which was like a paper, like an index card, it's like old school where the school wrote down your enrollment and everything on paper. So,
do you notice where it says Chinese civilian?
I don't think I have the school enrollment, but in this little pile of stuff. But
what said on her enrollment that she was a Chinese.
Oh, here it is.
civilian.
Yeah, I got it.
What's that about?
Okay, so this is when she was in Seattle when, according to Obama, she wasn't. But baby Obama's Seattle address confirmed by 1960s official record, Durham attended Little Red Schoolhouse in Seattle suburb with Iona Stenhouse, daughter of John Stenhouse. So the Polk Directory, a 1960s phone book, and Durham's University of Washington transcript also confirmed Durham's address as 516 13th Avenue East in Capitol Hill, Seattle. So there it is. Now she went by Anna, Miss Anna Obama. So
I lived on that block. My first house in Seattle was on the other side of that block on 12th and Mercer. She was 516 13th between Republican and Mercer. It was literally my first place there. Just on a side note, but it's just weird. I love that I have the connection to that block.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes these stories like will literally hit you close to home. You know, like I've had my little run-ins with some of these people because I was politically active. It's just weird. So here's a picture of Stanley Ann Durham with little Barack Obama, and she has him in this tribal necklace with a pendant here with tribal stuff. It's just crazy, all this stuff. I mean, I spent years on Barack Obama, so I'm aware of his connection to Seattle, and that's why when this was sent to me, I did look at it for a long time. So this is CHOP, the Chaz CHOP. This is the boundaries of it, and one of the boundaries here, was right at that house for CHOP.
Yeah, the east boundary on that picture is right their front yard. They're just right there, right, literally at the boundary. And that's no coincidence.
I mean, one of the things, when I saw this, the other thought I had, so anyway, the last picture is baby Obama with his mother residing in the gateway to Chaz or CHOP, right? So this is a picture from Seattle. I guess somebody somehow identified the railing or the fence, and they figured out that was, in his age, that's where she was. One of the things that... Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, and I've done a lot of digging. So Iona Stenhouse, whose father was the one that testified in the 50s, I believe, that he was a communist, and his other faculty they went to school. So her and Stanley were besties, right? So it's another, they were hanging out at each other's houses after. But if you find Iona Stenhouse interviews of her talking about Stanley and Barack way back in the day, before they could scrub it, you'll find that her testimony just punches all sorts of holes through Barack's version. So she's a good one to look at as far as close friends with Barack's mommy. Her father was a fellow traveler and the teacher who was teaching all these youngins about communism and how we should let Russia and China into the USSR, into the United Nations.
Right. I mean, another thing that I know about, another line of inquiry, okay? And this would be difficult, but not hard, not impossible. Another thing I know about these situations is that often, so when you're a subversive group, such as these just outright communists, what they do is they will buy all the houses, like on a block, for example, and it's like a compound, but you don't know it's a compound. And you got to wonder, if Seattle, you have the Gates family, you have her family, because we know they had kind of like a commune thing going on in Hawaii. It's almost like they moved her from one communist compound to another. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And
like they think of it as a big communist family, and in the sense of commune, like we know all these celebrities, right, who lived in communes where all the kids were raised together, and their parents, had sexual relations with whoever they wanted to in the commune, and they didn't really care, like, essentially who the kids belonged to. They were being brought up as like just a big family in the sense of the commune. It's almost like these people move from commune to commune, and that kind of ties into what I was talking about with the Hillary's summer job at the fishery in Alaska. You got to wonder. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no coincidences here for sure, but I've been following Q for coming on a couple years, right? 2018, D5 will be my 2 year, but I've never really seen so many things within a short post glean so much information, and then be backed up by things that maybe not everybody follows it, but it all backs up, It wasn't just that there was this big star over the spiral. It was the first hit on the thing was Fibonacci spiral, in the gematria. That led to it as well. So it wasn't just the giant star pinpointing right over this thing that we all know, looks like an altar, but then the history behind it, the history behind that part, the history behind Obama and Obama's mama and Saud and Obama's daddy, and it's all there, and it lines up with the map, this entire story. And in more references that popped up a lot are the flood and Watch the Water, those links to previous. I think this is what they mean by watch the water. I think this is the water we're meant to watch, because that is the closest to ports, Vancouver and Seattle, to China and Russia.
Right, and you have the Port of Seattle, which ties to that lunatic congresswoman who was, I can't think of her name, but she was one of the rudest to Bill Barr, that's for sure. And, then we had the Port of Long Beach being taken away from a Chinese management. There's definitely ties there. Another thing I would say that I noticed, like with the gematria, which is something I don't, I let other people handle that. I'm not an expert on that.
Yeah.
I speak Latin, but I don't do gematria. So the thing about the gematria and some other things that I thought about when I saw this story was, so when they had the communist so-called Red Scare, they talked about how, and think about Nellie Orr, right? So these people in these subversive groups, these farms, if you want to call them that, they learn how to do secret comms. So you had like was it Rosenbergs? What did they have in their house? They had a bunch of coded stuff, and they had a ham radio set up. And then you also had Nellie Orr. Why did she need a ham radio? And then you have these people in these communist communes or whatever you want to call it, I'll guarantee you they were passing messages because we had McCarthy yelling and screaming about how they were passing messages and we're communists. So it wouldn't surprise me.